Hey Talking Fame, and welcome to another Talking Sports video. And we are going to go ahead and preview the American Express at PGA West for the PGA tournament this week. It is currently Wednesday night. I am recording this at 7:39 p.m. Here we go. Alright, so let's go take a look at the CBSSports.com predictions, expert picks, odds, field rankings, and the golf best bets at the PGA West. So, the biggest field of the year will step foot this week, featuring 156 players. They will be tasked plugging along their playing partners as the first of two pro-ams is set to take place, spread across 3 different courses within the PGA West facility. So, they will feature a 54-hole cut rather than a 36-hole cut. So, we will be seeing a 3-round cut instead of a 2-round cut. Set upon the Stadium course and the Nicklaus Tournament course at PGA West and La Quinta Country Club, it will be considered by some to a putting contest. Road number 5 and recent Tournament of Champions winner Jon Rahm. He is also joined by a standard non-designated PGA Tour event. In fact, 10 of the top 20 players in the world will play in the American Express, including number 2, Scottie Scheffler, and number 6, Xander Schauffele. He will return to action following a withdrawal from the Tournament of Champions 2 weeks ago. Patrick Cantlay, Tony Finau, Will Zalatoris, Cameron Young, Sam Burns, Tom Kim, and Sungjae Im round out the long list of big names as well. So, this is the first mainland United States tournament of the year. So, the event information for today, for this weekend, it starts tomorrow, January 19th, through January 22nd. It is going to be at PGA West in California. It will be par 72 and 7,060 yards with an $8 million purse. Let's take a look at the odds. So the biggest odd, according to the Caesars Sportsbook, is Jon Rahm, 6-1, and he arrives as one of the best putters in the world over his last 7 measured events. During the span, he has averaged 1.46 strokes gained putting per round, nearly double what tour leader Lucas Herbert averaged in 2022. This has led to 3 victories, including his 2023 debut at the Tournament of Champions. He lost strokes on approach at Kapalua, but given his familiarity with the desert setting, he will bounce back with the irons shipping store for the 2018 champion of this tournament. Then Scottie Scheffler is second at 10-1. He is the highest ranked player in the field, but he nearly recaptured his number 1 status at the Tournament of Champions before a poor final round. He ultimately finished tied for 7th. His performance at Kapalua marked his 6th top 10 finish in his last 7 starts. He leads the field in strokes gained tee to green over the last 6 months, averaging 1.94 strokes gained per round as the putter finally showed some light of life. 11-1 is Patrick Cantlay, 14-1 is Tony Finau. Sungjae Im is 18-1. He missed the cut at the Sony Open, but he was surprisingly marked only his 4th missed cut over his last 25 starts on the PGA Tour. In his 4 prior trips to Palm Springs, he has notched finishes of tied for 11th, tied for 12th, tied for 10th, and tied for 12th as well. On the edge of contention in each instance, perhaps his fellow countrymen winning the Sony Open will provide the motivation to propel him. Will Zalatoris at 20-1, Xander Schauffele at 21. This is a new spot. He has not played in the American Express since his rookie year in 2017. He was forced to withdraw during the second round of the Tournament of Champions due to a back injury, but he looks good to go to re-enter competition. Before his early exit, he was riding finishes of 4th, tied for 9th, 4th, and tied for 3rd. With a strong background in desert golf, don't be surprised if the road number 6 is right there come Sunday. Cameron Young is at 20-1, while Tom Kim is at 20-1 as well. He is 20 years old, as He imploded at the WLA Country Club, while on paper he was the more ideal fit. Winner in the desert of Las Vegas at the Shriners Children's Open. The PGA West rotation should be right up in his alley. Over the last 12 months, Tim ranks first in this field in terms of proximity from 100 to 150 yards, and first from 150 to 200 yards. He did lose nearly 7 strokes on the greens of WLA, but just a return in this baseline with the putter will allow him to factor for his third PGA title. And then Sam Burns is at 28 to 1. So the expert picks, we have Cameron Young, who is the winner, they say, at 20 to 1. It was this tournament a year ago where he experienced his first heartbreak of 2022. Entering the final round, 3 strokes off the lead, he signed for a 5 over 77 to ultimately finish in a share of 40th. So Cameron Davis is a contender at 45 to 1. He knocked the rust off last week at the Sony Open with a respectful tie for 32nd result. He is finishing this week second in strokes gained off the tee and 10th in strokes gained tee to green. The 27-year-old returns to Palm Springs for the first time since 2021. It was that year where he nearly chased down Siwoo Kim before ultimately finishing solo third. And then sleeper on this will be Sahith Theegala. If he putts well, he typically finds a way to meander onto the first page of the leaderboard. In his last 5 instances of gaining at least 4 strokes on the greens, he has collected finishes of tied for second, tied for 6th, tied for 15th, tied for 2nd, and tied for 3rd. He may have been extremely low floor. He implodes with the best of them, but his ceiling is equally as high. And that is going to be the field. Now, next up, I want to take a look at the American Express power rankings. So at number 15, we have Sahith Theegala, and his tournament debut last year as a PGA Tour rookie. He charted a career low 62 at the Nick Ellis tourney in his second round and finished tied for 33rd. 3 top 6 finishes this season. And then Sanjay M is 14. He serves as the limited test for the team right now since splashing here in 2019. He's gone tied for 12th, tied for 10th, tied for 12th, and tied for 11th. But after an opening 2023 with a tie for 13th at Kapalua, he missed the cut at Waiala'i by 4. Next up, we have Cameron Young, who is back for redemption after being upended by a closing 77 to finish tied for 40th in his debut last year. He sat tied for 5th and just 3 shots off the lead entering the finale. He opened 2023 with a tied for 13th at Kapalua. At 12th, we have Taylor Montgomery, who is PGA Tour card. He's a rookie. He's an early Rookie of the Year favorite. Is a 8 for 8 with 7 top 15 finishes, including a tie for 12th last week. Tom Kim is also making personal history of sorts this week because this is his first host site on tour where he's making his second appearance. Next up, Tom Hoge, they tied for 6th in 2020 and a solo 2nd at 2022 in his last 2 editions with a 54-hole cut. He's earned this faith, and hey, he at least TC lost by a zillion since his tie for 3rd as a first-timer at Kapalua. At 9th, we have Sam Burns, who is still struggling and putting 4 rounds together, but this floor is also high, also at 2 appearances with 54-hole cuts at PGA West. He finished tied for 18th in 2019, and he tied for 6th in 2020. At number 8, we have Brian Harman, who has a lefty. He's been a fixture since 2016. He sits for 7 all paydays, going for a top 25, including a pair of tied for 3rds in 2017 and in 2024. All 24 rounds this season are par or better. He has not been over par in a round yet this season. Next up, at number 7, we have Andrew Putnam, who arrives with a pair of strong streaks in tow. He crashed a 13 straight starts with 3 top 5 finishes, tied for 4th at Sony and at PGA West in 2018. He's tied for 5 with 4 top 25s. At number 6, we have Siwoo Kim. It is his season. He's fresh off the surge to win the Sony Open in Hawaii, and he's only 2 years removed from his victory at PGA Tour West in 2021. Also placed tied for 11th in his title defense. Number 5, we have Will Zalatoris ended his injury sabbatical by limbering up with a tie for 11th in his first appearance at Coppola, where he was sub 70 in every round. He opened last year with a tie for 6th in his debut at the American Express. At number 4, we have Tony Finau, who this is his 6th appearance and 4th consecutive since returning with a tie for 14th in 2020. He added a solo 4th in 2021. Shed whatever rust he had with a well-balanced tie for 7th at Coppola 2 weeks ago. At number 3, we have Patrick Cantlay, who there's no reason to expect him to contend, where he's mastered the art of cadencing competition. He's also gone tied for 9th, 2nd, and 9th in his last 3 appearances. Alright, at number 2, we have Scottie Scheffler, who he has a bunch of title defenses are on the horizon, but this is neither a bridge nor a primer. For all of that, he's finished 3rd in 2020 and a tie for 25th last year at PGA West. He rested after a tie for 7th at Coppola. And finally, at number 1, we have Jon Rahm, who with 3 wins, a tie for 2nd, and a tie for 4th in his last 5 official starts worldwide. He's a default number 1 here. He's also a former champion who won here in 2018. And that's going to be the power rankings of the American Express. Now, next up, we have 5 things to know about this course. Number 1 is the hardest course in the PGA, where the architect had already shaped a TPC Sawgrass Stadium course out at a Florida swamp, who built demanding layouts and the required pinpoint precision. He debuted as the venue for the TPC Sawgrass debuted as the venue for the Players in 1982, and a short time later, Vossler and Walser, the architects, asked Dye to enact a similar transformation on the opposite coast, creating another stadium design in the desert of California's Coachella Valley. So he did accomplish his mission. It was deemed the hardest in the nation when it opened. It has a rating of 77.1, was the highest ever given by the United States Golf Association. It also earned the stadium course the 1991 Ryder Cup. It was later moved to another Dye design, Kiowa Island in South Carolina, because of concern of hosting an intercontinental competition in the Pacific time zone. Number 2, we have Transformation in the Desert. It was famous for its dramatic features, including steep slopes and penal hazards. It bellies the property's original state as a flat parcel of desert. The sandy soil allowed him to mold a memorable course from the ground. He sculpted a course where water comes into play on nearly half of the holes, and there is more square footage of sand than putting surface. The Revolt. The stadium's course debut as a tour venue in 1987 proved that he had done his job. Raymond Floyd called the course pitiful and hateful. Tom Watson said he was sick and tired of Dye's radical designs. It requires you to execute shots that no sane golfer should be expected to play, Watson added. So, famed Los Angeles Times columnist Jim Murray wrote that you need a camel, a canoe, a priest, and a tourniquet to get through it. Expected positive reviews from the tour pros, Dye instead was lambasted with personal cutting remarks to the effect that I had lost my mule-headed mind, he wrote. It didn't help that the first round was hit by cold weather that only made conditions more difficult. Things didn't get much easier by Sunday. The 73.97 final round scoring average was almost unheard of for the friendly setups of this Pro-Am tournament, where red numbers are the norm. And then at number 4, we have Fault Lines. Like the first stadium course at TPC Sawgrass, Dye was a memorable finishing stretch for the second edition. He called PGA West's final 3 holes maybe the most difficult finishing holes I've ever built.